Hey, welcome, 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 welcome on this dreary, dreary night in downtown Toronto. My name is Rosemarie King. I am events chair of the Toronto Product Managers Association, and I am really thrilled to welcome you all here. And thank you so much for coming out in this miserable, miserable weather. But we're here to talk about leading without authority. With my very dear and very old friend, Tami Reiss, which is going to be really exciting. But first, let me give you a little bit of an intro to TPMA, land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So about TPMA, we are a 20-year-old organization. We are a nonprofit, and we are entirely volunteer-driven. We serve around 5,000 product managers in our sort of membership over the greater Toronto area, and we are always growing, and we are so happy to have you here. The venue sponsor, sorry, I flipped ahead. The venue sponsor is BrainStation. Is BrainStation making a little announcement tonight? Awesome. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to BrainStation. Show of hands, is this anyone's first time at BrainStation? Okay, quite a bit. Just as an introduction, first, my name is Mitchell Savage. I'm a manager here at BrainStation. For those of you that aren't aware, we are a global leader in digital skills training as well as workforce transformation. We work with individuals looking to build durable careers in product, data, design, marketing, as well as AI. At the same time, we work with industry-leading organizations, helping ensure that their teams are equipped with the skills for the digital economy. Outside of that, we partner with great communities such as the TPMA and host them in our space. And we also run hundreds of events on our own. So my ask to everyone is check out our website, check out upcoming events, and would love to see all of you out there again. So hope everyone has a great evening. You're in for a great event, and see you guys all next time.
Love BrainStation. Thank you so much. And I know several people who teach courses at BrainStation, and they are amazing. So our volunteers, show of hands, who here's a volunteer? Yes, these guys actually make our show run. We could not do this without them. And if you are interested in becoming a volunteer, please feel free to speak to one of the volunteers or myself or a few of our other officers. And there's a lovely list of them and all of the things that they do. Oh, we're at a question break. Are you a community builder? Yes, show of hands. Amazing. So community builders are people who pay, I believe, $30 a year to become a member of our community. And they get 25% off all of our programming, and lots of other sort of fun programming things are sort of targeted at them. So if you're interested in supporting us, because we are a nonprofit and we are volunteer driven, it really helps our bottom line to be able to offer really great programming to you and sort of invest back in our organization. But do consider it. And that you also 25% off workshops, off of the events like these, and anything else we run. And all of our community builders. And I am so excited now to kick off our programming for the evening with my friend Tami Reiss. I'm going to be reading her bio because it's long and it is extensive. But Tami and I actually started working together 2013. Good Lord. At a lovely organization called Pivotal Labs, which was acquired so many times I actually don't even know what it's called anymore. But Tami was really, sort of somebody who helped me find my way around product management. I really consider her a mentor, and I am in awe of what she's done in her career. But she is an expert on influence-driven leadership, which I actually can attest to. She can talk an Eskimo into buying ice. She's a keynote speaker, a corporate trainer, a CEO of Leader Within, who helps leaders master influence and maximize impact by providing easy-to-follow tools like LEAD framework, Map Your Influence, and the Confident Communicator GPT, which I can't wait to hear more about. She shares her knowledge in accessible ways worldwide. Her latest passion project is a rhyming illustrated book, which we are going to be hearing about tonight, on product management, which you can all have a free copy of, which I hope you've taken because they are pretty great and they're good for your children and for your parents. Um, and everyone in between. She is based in Miami, and Tami brings the heat. I'm really thrilled to welcome her to the stage.
Thank you very much, Toronto. I'm from Miami, so rain doesn't scare me. I'm really glad I showed up before the snow. I hear that's coming tomorrow evening, maybe Friday. Tami's getting out of here. Tami from Miami is legitimately where I come from. And I'm really excited to hang out with all of you tonight and share one of my favorite topics, which is influence. And I'm going to start by talking about something really important because I told you so. And I warned you, and you didn't listen. And I knew this was going to happen. And those are really intense words, huh? It's a weird way to start a speech. It's not the energy I normally bring, but that energy is the energy we bring when we say, I told you so. Oh, we're not on my things. Oh, sorry. Imagine a dramatic, I told you. I told you so. And when you were feeling that negative energy from me, you probably thought exactly what everyone else thinks when we say, I told you so. I warned you. You didn't listen. What we're really communicating is, I was right. You were wrong. And it feels good. It feels good to say that, right? Let's be honest with ourselves. When we say, I told you so, it's like, yeah, I won. It's satisfying, it's gratifying, but in reality, not so much. Sorry, I'm trying to go backwards. How to go backwards? There we go. It's not actually gratifying for more than like 4 minutes because the blame of you didn't listen is actually shame. It's shame that I didn't communicate in a way that made you listen. I failed to communicate in a manner that got you excited, that activated you, that motivated you. And my responsibility, especially as a leader, is to do those things. As a leader, my responsibility is to get you to follow me. A leader without followers is not leading anyone. A leader's responsibility is to get other people to listen and to act. And when leaders are successful, they never have to say, I told you so. How many of you are product managers? All right, for those of you that didn't raise your hand, what is your role? Growth, marketing. But what? Used to be product. I mean, growth marketing is a version of product, right? Who else didn't raise their hand? That was it? Everyone else here is, oh, come on, yeah. Product operations, absolutely. You help the rest of us do our job well. We appreciate you. Product management, no matter what, is a leadership role. It is a manager role. And what that means is we have this responsibility as leaders to encourage other people to follow us. And the way we do that is called influence. How many of you have heard, oh, as a product manager, I need to master influence without authority? Yeah? It's something we say. Does anyone know what it really means? It means we don't have direct reports, but somehow we have to get everyone to listen to us. Because when they don't listen to us, we say, I told you so. I knew this about the user. I knew that launch wasn't going to be successful, that feature no one really wanted, right? We've all had those moments, and it feels good to be right. But does it feel good when your team loses its funding? Does it feel good when your company runs out of runway? No. So I told you so is not actually a good thing. And I want you to remember that being right is not as valuable as getting everyone else on board to see that you were right in time to save the day, to make the right decisions, to choose the right features, to launch it, to understand the value proposition you want to be putting forth in sales messaging, in marketing. All of that, it lies on us. That is our responsibility to the company. That's actually what product management is really all about. And that's something AI is not going to replace. In fact, AI just gives us more tools. It gives us more tools to influence more people and help them recognize before it's too late that we know something, that we have data that backs up our assumptions, that we've done some research, that this prototype actually resonates with people. These are tools that we can utilize to influence, to get other people who don't report to us to think like us and to act in the way we want them to. And this is what we do every day, a million times a day. Because it turns out throughout your day, you are selling your ideas. And I say life's a pitch because every moment in your life, you are pitching something. You are pitching a new team member to join your team. You are pitching an engineer to do something in a specific way that you know is going to be sustainable for the next release too. You're pitching the designer to test something that you just have a hunch about. There's a feeling in your gut about. You're pitching the executive team to invest in your team, to give you maybe more headcount, to maybe give you a little bit more responsibility, to allow you to try out a new technology. Or you're pitching them that their idea is bad and that there are better places for you to invest your time, your resources, and everyone on your team's time. No matter what we're pitching, we're selling ideas. And we have to stop thinking of selling as a dirty word. Selling is not a dirty word. We all sell all the time. Everyone you know sells. There is no profession that doesn't sell. Even the person who just talked about BrainStation, he's selling this space right here as a fantastic place to gather as a community. It's pitching. Someone pitched you on coming tonight for whatever reason. Maybe it was the free book. Maybe you heard that I'm really loud and energetic. I don't know. Maybe you are looking for a job and this was a great place to network. All of these are different pitches that someone used to sell you to come here today. And so the more we can turn on that part of our brain and recognize that being right is insufficient. Being right is not enough. We need to pitch other people so that they recognize what we're saying has value, so that they understand there is something they can do to make it a reality. And that's what it means that life's a pitch. And so a little bit about my background. Rosemary talked a bit about it. I have a long history in product. I've worked in-house. I've worked as a consultant. I've been a CEO twice now. CPO in residence and inside partners. I've seen hundreds of companies. I have done executive coaching for hundreds of product leaders. And I can tell you that the thing that upsets me the most is how often when people rise in the ranks, they forget their influence skills. They think, now I'm a VP of product. I'm a CPO. I'm a senior director of product. People have to listen to me. All of a sudden, I have authority. I'm free of influence. I have authority now. And they're wrong. Because the influence skills that got them to that level are actually more important now. Because they are now playing a different game. They're influencing cross-functionally with other senior directors and other vice presidents and other C-suite people and the board. And they have to influence them to get funding for the initiatives they want. And they have to influence them so that the go-to-market team falls in line with what product wants and they stop annoying them with requests that aren't going anywhere. And they have to worry about the head of customer success and their fears about NPS and CSAT and how to assuage them. They need to sell them to calm down. They're pitching them that it's all going to be okay and to trust the product org. And those influence skills, those pitching skills, those selling skills, those make the difference between a successful product leader and one who unfortunately finds themselves looking for another job soon. That realization that simply because you have a title doesn't give you very much. And there's a story, I'm just gonna skip a little bit. There's a story about Blockbuster. I assume Blockbuster existed in Canada too. Cool, because they were a big deal. Who here remembers as a child being in the back of their parents' station wagon, zooming to Blockbuster before they closed so that you did not get a late fee? Yeah. Do we remember to be kind and rewind? Yeah. Be kind and rewind so that we didn't get charged, I don't know, 99 cents more. Blockbuster was a juggernaut. They were worth trillions of dollars. And Netflix showed up. And you may be thinking, they poo-pooed Netflix. They said it wasn't going to be a big deal. We all know Blockbuster is gone now, and Netflix has taken over. What you might not know is that there were people in Blockbuster who said, we want the internet, we want streaming, we think this is happening. And they made Blockbuster.com, and they got rid of late fees. And they started to have mail order DVDs just like Netflix. They saw the future, but something happened. They were unable to convince the board that this was the way forward. I hope many of you have read Clay Christensen's The Innovator's Dilemma. Blockbuster is classic Innovator's Dilemma. They thought they were on the top of the world, and innovation would have destroyed their massive cash cow. And they were afraid of that. And so they ignored employees like a guy named John, who was the product head of Blockbuster.com and was spearheading a lot of these things. The main difference between John and the rest of us who think earlier about that time when we knew the feature wasn't going to go anywhere, or that the best feature ever really should be invested in and we couldn't get that buy-in, is that John couldn't actually say, I told you so. Because John was the CEO. John was the CEO of Blockbuster. And you can read about this. He's written about it in Harvard Business Review. He sits there with shame that he was unable to convince the board of what was coming. They didn't trust him enough. And he was the CEO. So we have to recognize, as we move our way up the ranks, influence actually becomes more important, not less. As we get more authority, we need to have more influence. This I call a truth bomb, because better title does not equal more influence. You can be the CEO, and if you don't focus on making sure that people want to follow you, that you're telling a story that resonates with your employees, they're going to find somewhere else to go. And your board isn't going to go to bat for you. And your customers aren't going to refer you. And so, no matter where you are in your career, influence will play a role. And so that is why I created Map Your Influence, the MAP framework. Map it out. MAP stands for M.A.P. First, we have M, manifest where you want to go. And I promise I'll go into each of these in just a second. A is for assess. Assess where they want to go. Who are you influencing and what is important to them? And finally, We have P, which is promote, where you can go together. So someone give me an idea of someone they need to influence, AKA convince them to do something. Who are you currently trying to convince something? You're all trying to convince someone. Come on. Oh, yes. Hi, sir. What do you want your CTO to do? You want the CTO to stop buying new tools. Okay, we're going to go through this. Ready? Manifest. Where do you want to go? You want them to stop buying new tools. Is it because you want to use that budget for other things? Is it because the on-ramping to a new tool is actually costing you dev time? Yes. What other reasons do we have? So the assessment takes a long time and it's not being used towards building things. Okay. Now, where do you want to go? You want to go to a world where the CTO, this is the future over here, CTO stops doing this. So in that new world, there's more budget available for investing in things that will actually go somewhere. Engineers are working on things that customers might actually see. And when he looks at his own budget, it might look okay because he's not asking for more without any ROI. Okay. Assess where they want to go. Who here has a CTO? Great. What is your CTO like? He's a quiet guy. Okay. He doesn't like attention. He doesn't like the spotlight. If he has to talk to the board and ask for more budget, spotlight. Hey, I know you really don't want to have to ask the board for more money. I have this idea. I've noticed we've been spending a lot of money on new tools and discovering whether or not they're appropriate for us. Will you tell me why you've been doing that? Assess. I have to learn about him. What is his inspiration? What is his goals? Maybe he thinks by trying out new tools, he's keeping his engineers happy. Okay, you're doing this to keep your engineers happy. How do they feel when they launch features that users appreciate? Oh, they feel really great about that. Oh, so that also makes them happy. Great. I have an idea. We currently tried out 10 tools last year. What do you think if in 2026, we try out less tools and engineers can spend more time on features that users will actually appreciate? Okay. And then you can ask them, how many tools do you want to try out next year that's less than 10? And then you're on a negotiating table, right? Because they see that you're helping them not be in the spotlight and retain engineers. But you can only come up with that pitch when you invest the time in understanding your own incentives and their incentives. And they can then see you as a partner instead of an antagonist. And when we become a partner, people are more willing to listen, and people are more willing to act, and people are more motivated to act, often because they think it's in their best interest. This only works when it's true. I want to be clear. I don't want you to become a used car salesman. It has to actually be true. But when you put yourself in someone else's shoes, when you use your empathy muscles that we've spent so much time developing for internal people, not just outside customers, what that enables us to do is know how to promote to them, know what to say so that they understand that there's a Venn diagram, that there's an opportunity for mutual benefit if you walk on this path together. And so that's map it out. And if you go to this QR code, you will be able to download this PDF. It's very complicated. And the thing I want everyone to recognize here is that if you look at the manifest, there's only one. You have a singular vision of all the wonderful things that happen in this future. It's not the action of the CTO using less tools. It's the future that exists when they stop trying out too many tools. So you have all these dominoes that happen when that happens. And so you understand this world over here. And who else might be interested in this world? Like the sales team, because they'll have more features, etc. Then you have different rows for each of the individuals you're talking to. Every individual likes to be spoken to as an individual. Do you like generic messaging? Generic messaging works for you? No, come on. How many advertisements do you just flip through because they're not designed for you? But that Instagram ad, it's perfectly targeted based on the fact that you clicked on the cleanser 4 days earlier. That's the one we open because it's targeted to us. Targeted means personalized. And that P promote is going to be personalized. You're going to personalize your pitch to those individuals that you work with. And you're going to recognize that a sales manager is different than a salesperson, and a CS manager is different than a CS rep, and everything else. That each person wants to be seen and they want to be valued. And the more you can invest in understanding them so that when you promote what it is you want, they can understand how it should be what they want, the greater your influence will grow. This is the fundamentals of influence. I teach mastery level where we talk about word choice and forced choice questions and a variety of other things. But I am 100% of the belief that if everybody could simply do this and take a few minutes to think about what does somebody else want? Where is there an overlap? Less products would be launched that aren't going to be appreciated by users. More features that will help grow revenue will show up. More companies will be successful where collaboration is key to their ethos. And I think a lot more people will be happier at work because they won't feel like they're marginalized and that their opinion doesn't matter. Because the sooner you start assessing other people and listening to them, the sooner they feel heard, and then you feel heard, and everything gets a little better. And so that's my vision for the world, that we all learn to influence, that we all put on our pitching hat when we're talking to another person, and we recognize that we might just have to listen a lot before we can talk. And so you too can master influence, and that will help you maximize impact. And now we're going to pause for questions.
Okay. All right, I'm going to kick us off.
This is my Canadian.
I love it. We like it. I'm going to kick us off with a couple of questions, and then we're going to open it up to all of you guys. This is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. I was once fired on a street corner in Mexico City because I did not bring my stakeholders along on my journey. I thought I was doing everything right. I was doing user research with our members. I was mapping it. I was prototyping. I was testing, all of it. I was not informing my CEO of anything I was doing. And he had no idea what I was doing.
Or why,
or
what the
why,
value was to
or
him.
what the value was to him, etc. And it cost me my job. And it was a massive ice bath. You know, pain is knowledge entering the body. But I have never looked back from that day. It was, for me, the most important lesson of my product career is that stakeholder management is your job.
So I had a similar thing happen. I was at JustWorks, which is a payroll and benefits company in the United States, because our benefits are tied to the employer, which is a dumb system. But
stay north of the border, folks.
stay here. And my VP of product, who now actually is the general manager of New York Times Cooking, if any of you use New York Times Cooking, her name is Camila Velasquez. And I had been at JustWorks for probably 6-8 months. And she said to me, Tami, I need you to understand that the success of any idea is the byproduct, like multiplication, of how right the idea is and how much buy-in you have.
Yeah.
And you could be 90% right, but if you don't bring other people along, it's not going anywhere. And I had to learn that in my career as a consultant, It's all right. Everything's just going to drop. In my career as a consultant, if your company is paying for Pivotal Labs and they're charging something like $500 an hour, you listen.
Yeah.
You listen the first time. But when you're just hanging out with the product manager on your team, they need to bring you along. And as a consultant, we had to bring people along to big ideas, but not every little one. And so I had to recognize that every little idea also needed buy-in, and that people needed to feel like they had space, and people needed to feel ownership, and they needed to feel connected. So much of this just boils down to human psychology of the desire for connection to the other members of their team, to the vision of their company or their product. All of those things play a role. And the sooner we can start tying into that and recognizing that there's emotional decisions that get made, the better we will be.
So what do you think is a way as product managers we can really start exercising that muscle of like really trying to, I guess you would say, empathize or like get into the head or the psychology of our stakeholders? Like what are some, practices or characteristics that we need to think about honing?
Generally questions. So you all are probably very good at asking open-ended questions to users and conducting user interviews. Turn that on for your coworkers, especially when they seem resistant to something. If you have an engineer, a designer, a salesperson, a CS person, and they just they're mad, they don't like your idea, rather than fighting them, take a moment and try to understand why. Take them aside and say, you're very passionate about this. I'm obviously missing something. I don't have the perspective that you do. Will you please share why this is so important to you? If you just do it in those moments, it'll flow through.
I will say as well, like something that I always try to do when I join any new company is a round of stakeholder interviews with as many stakeholders that I'm going to be interacting with as possible. And the times I have not done it have been brutal.
So that template actually came from a guy named John Haggerty, who's a VP of product, and he does that. And he has a blog post that I insisted he wrote about stakeholder interviews when he starts. And his has more columns, but it was inspired, like mine is inspired by his, in the nature of better understanding your stakeholders, better understanding the cadence that they want to be communicated with. What do they want to be consulted on? What do they want to be referred to on, et cetera, et cetera? Because the sooner you know that, the higher the potential for you not stepping on their toes is, or by accident launching something that they cared about and wanted to know about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
People just want to be part of it.
Yeah. I also feel like it's a really helpful practice for you to understand who are your potential champions and who are your blockers. And I want to ask you about that, Tami. Do you think it is more valuable to invest time in your champions, or should you spend more time with your blockers?
So generally, blockers is not where you want to spend your time. And part of the assessment and what we talk about in like the more advanced mastering influence workshops is recognizing that sometimes I'm not the right person to deliver the message. I don't have enough influence over this person, but someone else does. There's a domino between us. There's a connection between us. And if I can talk to that person and they see the overlap and the Venn diagram, they can then talk to the third person. And so there's a concept called electoral politics. All of us are part of democracies, at least for the time being. And I'm glad I could make you all laugh about the shit show south of the border.
In Florida, they cry.
In Florida, what?
No,
In Florida, they party. Anyways, my state's a story. So you have your supporters, your champions, and you have opposition, and then you have everyone in between, which is the swing. And one of the most important things for every one of you to recognize is you do not need 100% buy-in. You just need the majority. That's the way the world works. Once the majority happens, the majority rules. And whoever the opposition is, they might get to say, I told you so, but before that, they go quiet, right? They realize this isn't the hill they're going to die on. They move on. And so part of what you get to do is look through your spreadsheet and say, okay, these are my supporters. These people are strong. These people are the swing. I'm going to have some of my strong supporters talk to some of these swing people, better understand them, not just word vomit at them, assess them first, understand them, and then promote what's valuable to them so that there are more and more people who are your supporters to champion your vision, your mission, your initiative, your project, whatever it is, so that the opposition recognizes this isn't the battle they want to fight. There's some other battle.
Okay, guys, I'm going to open it up to you. Who's got a question?
Hello. Microphone, or I can repeat it.
How can you
Yeah. So in a case study interview, so I, as a product manager who's looking for a job, and I'm going through a case study interview, and there's 3 different roles in front of me. That's the scenario. Now go. Yes. Mhm. Okay. They might be the most influential person in that group, but you're recognizing that there were 2 other people, and it's important to speak to them as well. The CPO probably cares about financial metrics. The VP probably cares about operational metrics. And so if you could either take a minute and ask them a question. When Rosemary and I were at Pivotal, we gave a case study, and the number one thing you did to fail was not ask us a question. So start by asking some questions, because they will appreciate that you recognize you don't know everything and that you want to learn about them, and then frame
I love
your
that interview
response
so much.
based on what they say. And so I do a little bit of job coaching, but I don't do it anymore because I've just written everything up I would ever say. And one of those things is, how do you make your interview responses more conversational? So if any of you are currently on the job market, listen up. This is a very cool thing you can do. Once you tell the answer to whatever question you've been posed, end it with a question for them. How would what I just said work here? What would happen if this? Was that the kind of example you were looking for? I have dozens from my career. What do you want to dive deeper into from my story? It's like a really fast feedback loop, which shows so many things. Number 1, it shows humility. Number 2, it shows that you can actually collaborate with someone. Number 3, you're interested in their company and how they do things, and you recognize that the way you've done things prior might not be the way they do things there. And you get a whole nother round to potentially tell a brand new story if the one you chose from your entire background isn't the magical unicorn you wanted it to be. And so getting into that mode of asking them questions and just saying to the CPO, what questions do you have about the impact of this? What concerns you about what I'm proposing? What downstream impacts do you know about in the portfolio of products that this might have negative impacts on? Or what synergies are there, right? That says to them, you think strategically, you think about multi-product. You're not only worried about what's in your lane, you want to know about what's going on in other lanes and how they're related and how you can work together. All of those things are things a CPO and a VP of product want to see. Because they're hoping when they hire you and they invest in you, you stay for a while. And when you stay for a while, you eventually oversee more than just your area.
Who else?
So the question is what do you do for that ultimate swing person, the wishy-washy flip-floppy person? You assume they aren't a supporter yet, and that you need more supporters to be talking to them and influencing them. And that when they show up to a meeting of 12 people, you know they're going to flip towards the majority and make it a stronger majority because they like to be people pleasers. But you can't call on them in the same way you could a strong supporter. So once you have a concept of your strong supporters, you might be asked a question in said meeting about sales, impact on revenue, impact on CSAT, whatever that is. You could answer that question, or you could turn to the CMO, the CRO, the CSO, whatever, and say, what is your perspective on that? You know more about this than I do. And when they answer it, everyone else is going to believe them because that's their area of expertise. You have to know what they're going to say because you've had a pre-meeting, but you don't call on that wishy-washy person.
So that's actually got a name. It's called shuttle diplomacy, which was coined by Henry Kissinger, which is how he managed to actually get all of the actors in the Middle East peace talks at the same table. Is he kept meeting with them one on one until he had such a clear grasp of each one of their individual priorities that he owned all of the information and he owned all of the perspectives and he could play them all like pieces on a chessboard.
And he knew what objections would come out and he would often preempt them.
He would preempt them. So that is something that we should all be thinking about in relation to our stakeholders is how do you become an expert in all of the perspectives at your especially in a situation like that. Especially in a situation like that, you have to be an expert
thereupon
that you are trying to play. And so shuttle diplomacy, like if you are terrified of going into a group situation because you don't know the outcome, that means that you have to be really strategic about how you have conversations. Like you said, the pre-meetings are crucial.
So here's what's funny. I mentioned earlier that as you move up in your career, you might forget these things. So I gave this talk, a variation of it, at a company last Thursday. That company's VP of engineering is the former CTO of Squarespace. This is a seasoned professional. He has been an advisor. He has been on boards. And he asked, Tami, when I'm in a room with 12 different voices from my company, what should I do to help personalize each of those messages? And I said, the meeting before the meeting. And he was like, okay, cool. And I explained what it was for the other members of his team. And I walked up to him later because he and I are friendly. And I said, you know about the meeting before the meeting. And he said, of course I do, Tami, but I've only ever used it for the board. I never thought about using it internally in that way. And he was like, that's eye-opening for me. And so I want you to understand that this is an ongoing learning for all of us. I screw this up. I beat myself up for like 6 months because of a text message I sent in the parent chat of a preschool. Because instead of asking a question, which was, what does everyone think of my idea? I just said, I think X. And the second one person said, I don't like that. It was dead in the water. And I was like, no, I know better. I screwed it up. I screw it up when I talk to my husband, right? I don't always use the best influence tactics when trying to get my toddlers to go to bed. But when I do, things are better. Today, my son was in the back seat and he wanted to unbuckle his seatbelt. We were not yet in the part of the carpool line where that was appropriate. And I said to him, if you can wait and be patient, you will get the booster seat you're looking for instead of the car seat. The freedom he wants. And he was like, but I want to do it now. And I was like, that's fine. You can do it now, but you're going to have to wait longer for the booster seat. And he said, but I want to do it now. And I said, okay, it's up to you. You know what the options are. And I paused. Oh, the power of the pause, right? And then he said, okay, mommy, I'll wait.
See, now that is actually
Toddler.
universally, I just used that on my boss today, my founder. I did. It was we're talking about a migration from one platform we've been on, which is sort of a cobbled together group of tools, to another platform that's a lot more cohesive. And he's been really, really intense about sort of the timeline and getting things done. And, I sort of mapped everything out with the particular platform we're going to. And I just said, Gary, here are the different scenarios. Like here, and it was a consequences talk. Here are the consequences. Like if we do it this scenario, we get XYZ. If we do it this scenario, I unfortunately can't take my 2-week holiday at Christmas. I'm going to have to work through that if we have to hit that deadline. He goes, well, no, I don't want you to not cancel your holiday, which is a lovely thing for him to say.
That sounds like a nice boss.
Oh, it's a wonderful boss. It's a wonderful boss. But and there was a million different scenarios, which I won't bore you with, but it was a conversation around here's what you get in different scenarios. And it's incredibly effective because it's like you choose.
And
It's
the
you
pause
yeah,
of
the pause.
letting them choose.
Of letting them choose.
There's like some magical number of like 3 things. And so one of the people I've worked with, actually, there's a study around this. And what you're supposed to do is not only give 3 things, but give 3 things and a recommendation. 3 things and a recommendation. So think about what that means. Your question, ma'am. No, never happened. It was about a friend. Swaying. So we're just going to go step by step. And the first question is there are new people entering onto a team in an existing project. What is important to do with them so they are bought in? And that is a matter of almost restarting. They have to think about the problem with you. They need to look at the solution and poke holes at it. Not what questions do you have about the thing that I'm asking you to do? What do you think is wrong with this? What could we do that's better based on your understanding of the problem? So that whatever they design is what they think is right. So you get those out earlier. So they say, oh, we really should be using a non-SQL database. And you say, oh, what are the benefits of that? How will that play out in these 7 scenarios that I forgot to tell you about while I was trying to give you an overview? And they say, oh, no, SQL database, that's the way we want it, right? And you have to invite them to challenge so that they can feel like whatever the end solution design is that's actually going to be implemented by them is something they came up with. And it's worth doing that extra, like literally like 2 weeks of an inception sort of kickoff design sprint with them so that they do that. Yes. Right. So, but have that happen earlier, right? And it's, their ideas need to be incorporated. That's the bottom line. They can't just take a spec and make it happen. They're not going to feel ownership. But if you invest the time earlier on, instead of them coming punctuated with disagreements about parts of your solution that they're poking holes in, you invest the time in them seeing the full picture and them agreeing on a solution with you. You have to agree with it, but you're going to agree with it back then. And you're not going to wait for a bi-monthly meeting in some sort of change order. Together, you're going to make sure it meets all of your criteria. And whatever small changes they want, it still needs to work with your criteria. Does that make sense?
Can I yes and that, Tami? So yes and, because I think that that's a really brilliant way of doing that. This also
hard in retrospect, just to be clear.
This also indicates to me that there's a real lack of frame and constraints happening. So these new people came in and your wishy-washy boss was kind of like, oh, well, they've got some points. So clearly there wasn't a strong sense of urgency or a deadline here. The organization as a whole was okay with allowing the project to continue, which is not always the case, right? In many organizations, there's like, we have a deadline and we have to sort of get something out. So I would yes and, because I think allowing them to like ask, I think the way that you frame that question of where do you see challenges, where can you poke holes,
what adjustments do you think would make this optimal?
Yeah, what adjustments would make this better is brilliant. But for me, potentially starting off with a goals alignment conversation with the new people and your champion stakeholder, understanding like what are the goals of this project, what are we trying to achieve, when are we trying to achieve it by.
And I'm going to yes and that, that beyond goals, it's that vision. They need to better understand what the value is you're trying to put out into the world.
She's got
yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. This is a fundamental thing I'm trying to teach you, which is if the people on your team do not feel bought in because they have tweaked even the smallest comma, you're going to end up in your situation. You don't have alignment. That's all I can tell you. And you need to get alignment. And I see this all the time. I worked with a CPO of a very large company in Lisbon, and he was telling me stories of conversations he was consistently having about different things. And I said to him, Gigi, it sounds like you don't have alignment at the executive level. And he said, yeah. But, and I said, no, back up. You need alignment at the executive level. And he said, blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, you need to invest in this. And he said, but that's going to be a lot of hard work. And I said, yeah, but that hard work right now means in 3 weeks, you won't have to have that same conversation. And in 6 months, you won't have to have that same conversation. And that the investment right now will pay off because you'll have more people aligned and more people advocating and more people with this shared vision in their head so they can make decisions correctly. And that's the job of a CPO. I said to him, yeah, that's the job. It's hard work, but that is your primary job as a CPO, to make sure all of the executives are aligned on where we're going and how we're going to get there. And it's not actually the CEO's job. That one's hard to swallow, but we'll talk about that some other time. Yes, sir. Sorry, I need you to talk slower and louder, please. So, no, I think you're making a really good point that I didn't get into, which is that influence is based on trust. It's built on trust. It's built on confidence. and you have every opportunity. You mentioned like, what could I be doing any given day? Think about when I'm sending an email, when I'm sending a Slack message, when I'm guiding a meeting, what can I be doing that builds trust and confidence in me as a product leader? And that helps. But when you start a new team, invest in building trust. Go out for virtual happy hour, get to know them, let them get to know you. Be actively humble about something and question something yourself and say, I was never really sure if this was the right idea. What do you think about it?
Accountability too. Accountability is a big thing that helps build trust, especially in the product role. Like I think there's a certain amount of maturity. And again, this has been a big lesson in my career of taking accountability, of being like, you're right, that was my responsibility. And like owning that and not shirking it and not saying, oh, but this happened and this happened and this person did this and this was really confusing and everything's happening and there's
And
all
I
these,
told you so.
and I told you so. It's like, yes, you're right. I can take accountability. There's a lot going on. I have not been able to adequately focus. That's on me. It's my responsibility to always align with you to make sure I know what's number one. And I'm going to do that moving forward. It happened to me again this week. Like we needed an alignment. Somebody needed a prep meeting for something. It didn't happen. It had been asked. And I could have chucked my team under the bus. And I stepped forward and I said, that's on me. That I missed that. I dropped the ball on that. I will make sure that that does not happen again. And if you can step forward, goes a huge way in building trust that you are like the people are being heard, right?
So when Rosemary introduced me, she said the LEAD framework. I have like a long, like 12-week thing on leadership. And L, LEAD, stands for look and leap. We want our leaders to look towards the future and have a vision, but we also want them to leap. We want them to stick their neck out. We want them to show that they have skin in the game and that they are willing to do something a little bit risky if they're expecting us to do risky. You had a question. You raised your hand. And then I'll get to you, sir. I do see your hand, I promise. And then we'll do one last question here and we'll wrap up so that everyone can go back to pizza and you can come up to me. I'll be here for a while, things like that. Yes. So the up the hierarchy. So the question is in the instance of there's a high stakes meeting coming up and you're planning out your meetings before the meeting, when should those happen? And if you start to get resistance, what are your options? You mentioned going up the chain, there's options. What should you do? So first of all, and this is going to be a hard one to swallow, apologies. Do not schedule that later strategic high stakes meeting until you've had a number of the meeting before the meetings. Like get to know what the objections are, get to know how much tailwinds you have, how much headwinds you have before you schedule something on the executive leadership team's calendar, right? So start there. And if you feel like you have enough momentum and buy-in, then it's okay, right? And you can schedule that larger thing and you can domino it out, but you have to have a little bit first. Because otherwise, you're walking into a meeting to be skewered, and you don't want that. Some ideas just don't have legs, and that's okay. We invest in a new idea, or we wait for that idea to have the right situation for backing. And so that's one thing. And now the second part of your question is in this process, there's going to be opposition. What do you do about that? There is no one answer. Sometimes it's a matter of talking to their boss. Sometimes it's a matter of talking to other people on their level or their employees, right? Their employees might really want something that you have as an initiative, and if it's a groundswell. Sometimes it's the CEO directly, and sometimes it's nothing at all. And you say, it's okay that they don't like this because there are enough other people in my corner and it's gonna move forward and I don't need to waste my energy. I hope that's helpful. This is why I became a product leadership coach, because being a product leader is very different than being any other executive. Have you read The First 90 Days? Who here's read The First 90 Days? Okay, fantastic book. Everyone should at some point pick it up, even if you're not currently going into a new job, because often you are going into a new team. And that's practically like a new job for a product manager, because you have to rebuild trust, and you have to rebuild relationships, and you have to rebuild confidence. And what that book outlines is understanding the situation you're in. And so if you're in a turnaround, you're supposed to do certain things. If it's just coasting, you're doing something else. And so recognizing what your role is as a product person when you're at a 0 to 1 product, when you're at a growth stage product, when it's a B2B product or a B2C product, or when you're in scale up or you're backed by PE versus VC, when you don't have a CPO, when you do have a CPO, right? When it's been the sales-led organization, when you've actually been working as a custom dev shop for 10 years, thinking you had a product, but your spaghetti code says otherwise. Right? Like all of these are situations. I know you're laughing. It's like as if I was a product manager for like 15, 20 or so years. Yeah. I've been there. I've seen it all. It happens, right? And I would say yes to the situational, but all situational means is learn about all those other things. Sometimes you're servants, sometimes you're this, sometimes you're that. And M.A.P is all about understanding your situation, assess the other people around you, and recognize it's always going to be a little different.
It's also, context is king in that circumstance. Like you said, if it's a turnaround situation, if there's a real sense of urgency, like for instance, I work at an early stage startup. We're cash positive, but we must see growth. There is no time to deliberate. We must act on things. And so, as much as I come from a background of collaboration and consensus and coaching leadership, I've really had to uncomfortably change my leadership style and go to a much more command and control a little bit, but I am still trying to find opportunities to make sure I'm hearing and listening to my direct report.
Finding your balance.
Yeah, finding the balance. But a collaborative coaching leadership style would not be appropriate for this company. And hopefully in 2 years, we can evolve into that, right? So it's all a question of what your organization is. I do want to talk really quick because we are almost at time. One of the reasons why I really wanted to bring Tami up is because she wrote the book I think that we've all needed, which is What Do Product Managers Do, which is a children's book.
Have you ever been asked what you do as a PM?
My partner doesn't know what I do. My mother has no idea what I do for a living. I've been at this nearly as long as Tami has, and I don't really know how to describe it. So I love the fact that she wrote a book for it. And I would like to ask you, what is your favorite passage in the book?
So there's a few passages, but I'm just going to read the title because I love the title. What do product managers do? A primer for aspiring PMs of all ages and parents who aren't sure it's a real job. Because my dad thinks I work in marketing. So I'm going to go with 3 if I can find them quickly. The illustrations are just fantastic, by the way.
It's a really fun book.
This is my graph page, which is what I'm going to read. In order to choose the thing we built next, we asked kids to tell us what they would suggest. Because to be the best idea chooser, we all have learned you are not your user.
What else? Next one. Who here loves their roadmap?
When we launch a product into production, we're hoping it causes a market disruption. To know what will give the team now, next, and later, check out our roadmaps and please do us a favor. Treat us with kindness and do understand not everything happens as originally planned. Change will happen for many a reason. Every addition should result in deletion. And then many PMs attend business school, yet other paths work and are equally cool. Some may say to read Kagan's Inspired, but nothing specific is really required. Most of us learn through on-the-job training, books, blogs, and podcasts fill in what's remaining. Meetups and conferences are where you will find experienced PMs sharing what's on their mind.
We have a book. We have a book back there signed for every single one of you. Please take it home so that we don't have to lug them out ourselves.
Thank you, Melanie. You can come get a book at your next meetup.
And we just want to say thank you all so much. Thank you so much to Tami. She flew up from Miami today, which is incredible. I just think that this was such a wonderful evening. And thank you guys all so much for coming.
And I'm around to ask
Yeah.
any question you didn't feel like asking to the
I
crowd.
believe we can hang out until 8 p.m. So really look forward to having chats afterwards. Thank you guys all so much.
Thank you. Oh, wait. There's actually 2 more slides. I totally forgot. All right. So here's your assignment. The next time you are asking for money, the next time you are looking for a co-founder, the next time you are looking to have someone join your team, the next time you're trying to get a customer, the next time you're trying to get a customer referral, the next time you are trying to expand your network, or the ever so popular change in a process, think about mapping it out. Thinking about mapping out your influence, thinking about the other people who are involved. Think about what the downstream impacts are for the thing you want to happen. Use it as a key. Influence is this key that will unlock success for you time and time and time again. If you have any questions, I'll switch this one. That's my Linktree page. It has a link to the book and videos and all these other things. You can email me. We didn't talk about the GPT, but there's a link to it. I pretty much took everything I've ever written or spoken about and put it into a GPT. It's called the Confident Communicator GPT. It's totally free. It was my way of giving out executive coaching without people having to pay me. We call that democratizing. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate you coming out in the rain.